On this episode, we speak to Haydn Thomas from Cornerstone Finance. We talk about what Cornerstone does, their lending arm, differences in lending options based on geographical location, and much more. Now, it's time to spend 30 minutes in finance.
Hi, my name is Haydn Thomas. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Cornerstone Finance Group based down in Cardiff.
Awesome. And thanks for coming on, Haydn. For everyone kind of listening to this, I was wondering, can you just give us a little bit of a taster of how you actually got into the industry and sort of what got you started?
Yeah, good question there, David. I mean, I've been in the banking industry for a long, long time. I did 24 years with NatWest before joining the intermediary world, predominantly in the SME finance space, NatWest and RBS brands within commercial banking and business banking. So when I left the bank, I decided to enter the commercial finance intermediary world, and then early in 2020, just before the country went into lockdown, I joined Cornerstone Finance Group as Chief Commercial Officer with a mandate to grow the commercial finance division and look for other opportunities out there in the market where the overall business could grow and expand.
Well, that was good timing for the switch then, I guess, jumping straight into the lockdown and everything. Just before we kind of roll on to the other bits, how was that sort of, was it for you guys? Obviously, just joining the business at that time, something like that happens. How did you guys handle that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was an interesting time, challenging for clients, and challenging for us as a business as well. So we we were at that point in time looking to expand a particular area of the business that we ultimately decided not to, and then pivoted into some other areas. So whilst it was a difficult time, and like many businesses out there across the country, we had to make some difficult decisions with staff, and we used the furlough scheme, etc., to get through. We supported a number of clients on accessing the government schemes, which kept us in close contact with some key clients. But we actually used the time as an overall group to reflect and to ultimately change direction in some areas and pivot and launch some new ideas and close down and scale down some other parts of the business. So yeah, interesting period from a personal perspective. I didn't just join the firm. I'm a shareholder, so writing that check out to buy the shareholding, and then 2 weeks later the country goes into lockdown was certainly an interesting
Yeah,
couple of weeks. But
I can imagine.
it's all paid off in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, out of the frying pan. Um, For it, I always find it interesting in terms of the sort of reason as to why you made that switch from sort of traditional banking. Obviously, I was sort of with Barclays, as probably I've said a million times on this thus far. But what was it that actually sort of made you jump sort of ship into the more entrepreneurial side of things, I guess, in terms of joining Cornerstone?
I think that just the timing was right for me personally. There's a bit of work-life balance side to it, so I'd ended up working in London, and commuting back and forth on a weekly basis, which wasn't a particularly healthy lifestyle, and not a great choice. So there were a number of factors, but uh, ultimately the two of my fellow shareholders here at Cornerstone are good friends and former colleagues, and we'd been in discussions around this in the past, and just the timing was right, really.
Oh, perfect. And yeah, it seems like the sort of joining probably seems like quite a long time away now. Um, I'd imagine, or from what I've seen and heard, obviously quite a lot's happened, and we'll get to that. Are you able to give us a little bit of an idea of sort of what Cornerstone does at the moment? Which areas are you focused in, and where are you sort of hoping to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So Launched 6-7 years ago, predominantly as a FCA regulated, directly authorized residential brokerage, which then grew into a small commercial team before I joined. As I said, we've pivoted some areas. We did have quite a large protection business, which we've now scaled back. But the business focus now is very much in two areas. So one is on SME, which is the area that I head up. So we have Cornerstone Commercial Finance, which kind of does what it says on the tin, commercial finance brokerage, serving SMEs, property investors, etc., across the full range of products. So commercial mortgages, bridging, development finance, asset finance, invoice finance, cash flow. You name it, we do it effectively here in the team. We've got our own bridging fund, so a bit of a competitor to FBSE, Dave. But
There's no such thing.
there's plenty of room for one more, I'm sure. So we launched 2 years ago now, March 2021, Cornerstone Capital. So we're funded by local Welsh entrepreneur, and we've just piloted and tested bridging finance up to £500,000. So focusing very much on individual and the asset, and predominantly in the South Wales and Southwest areas to begin with. We're just about to go England and Wales wide, with effect from Monday, the 13th of Feb, actually. So we're just on the cusp of that, and that's very exciting. So we've teamed up with Method on the panel valuation side, so we're now able to go and expand that into an England and Wales operation.
Awesome.
We purchased, again, just after the country went into lockdown, we purchased commercial finance brokerage, which we've now rebranded Cornerstone Commercial Insurance Services. Again, complements the commercial finance team and that SME focus. And that's growing and continues to grow year on year, providing excellent service, and is very much complementary on a number of deals, where we need to get properties insured and businesses insured at short notice. We have someone on site effectively that can do that for us. And then last year in that SME space, we have formed Cornerstone International. So Cornerstone International is a business that offers lower cost relationship managed foreign transactions through our partners Equals PLC up in London. And then on top of that, we have international trade and overseas infrastructure finance offering as well. So we're delighted that Mark Collins, who's been in the industry for many years, has joined us to head that up. So Mark's our managing director of Cornerstone International, and that is growing at pace at the moment with some very interesting and exciting deals on there. So that's all really in the non-regulated space. That's sort of my baby. And then sitting over in the regulated arm, we still have the Cornerstone Finance business, which is employed staff in the regulated space looking at mortgages and protection. But we've also expanded then the Cornerstone network. So we now have, and I'd have to look up the numbers, but it's in the region of 100 advisors and about 70 AR firms plugged into that network, with an ambition to grow that year on year over the next few years. So
That's good.
That kind of natural synergy then, obviously we have a commercial team there then that works with the regulated team to make sure that we look after the clients. So yeah, it's exciting times, and through pandemics and some interesting budget decisions, it's been an exciting couple of years. But yeah, we feel like we're in good shape to service the needs of the SME out there, particularly in South Wales, but on a national basis as well.
Yeah, it seems like it, because that is that's pretty much the entire market that you guys can handle in some form, if it comes down to finance. So, and you've got sort of 70 hours. How many people are sort of employed directly? What sort of size are you guys now?
In employment, you in the Cardiff office is running around about 35, and then we have a number of self-employed uh, individuals plugged in at any one point, either on sales or some consulting as well. So your base is sort of in the region of 45 to 50. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, that is grown massively. I think it's a lot bigger than it was when we last sort of spoke, sort of about that anyway.
Yes.
As
Yeah. Yeah.
I find it always interesting, obviously, and I don't know if you've seen the podcast. We spoke to Sarah from Acuity, who set up that, and obviously, you said you guys are sort of setting up another little lender, or already set up and now expanding.
Yeah.
How did you find that sort of process? I know you've been doing it a little while now. Was that an easy sort of process or difficult?
Well, I don't. I think far from easy. I think it's a it's a learning curve. You got 24, 25 years in a financial institution, which is a big beast, and you tend to be able to reach out for advice. To quite easily internally. This is almost kind of from scratch, I guess. So we had good support from Harrison Clark Rickaby on the legal side, and I think that was the probably the biggest challenge, was getting all our documentation right, working with our investor to make sure that we had that uh, all of that watertight and kept them happy. So that was a big learning for me personally, certainly. And then we've done quite a lot of process re-engineering and customer journey work, and we're still doing that as we expand it now. So the goal would be to deliver something in the next 2 years that is maybe more digital than we have. Um, but we're massive believers that it's a digital first operation, and people are more important within this SME sector, and particularly short-term finance. And when you're dealing with business owners and property individuals, then we're big believers that that personal touch and that relationship is important. So we're on a journey. I think we learn every time. We learn from every case. We've got a good setup, good people, good head of credit, and a very supportive investor. So yeah, it's an exciting part of the business, definitely.
No, yeah, I think from the chat with Sarah, she said the hardest part for them was finding a partner to fund them that was actually on their side, as opposed to trying to make money off them. And I'm guessing yours, as a sort of local entrepreneur, that they understand the need for that, finding funding in your local area and in and around your region, and were they quite happy to jump in, or did you have to sort of twist some
No,
arms?
they
Or
were. Yeah, they would. Yeah, I mean that they're the family are existing clients. So we know them well. We've got a good reputation, relationship with them, and the particular industry that they're in is not a growth industry for them. So they're looking for other avenues and other interests. So it's perfect timing, really.
because
So
it
yeah,
is.
incredibly supportive. Yeah.
No, that's good. And it is an interesting time to start expanding, because with the way the sort of market is at the moment, I've just had a deal in today from somebody that another lender has pulled out because they're no longer offering 70%. And I've seen a few people kind of changing their terms, doing bits and pieces. How are you finding the market at the moment, and where do you see, obviously, your sort of lending position or sort of proposition coming in to kind of fill those little gaps?
Yeah, I mean the overall market certainly is interesting. I think there's a huge amount of liquidity out there. There's funding available. Uh, I think biggest issue probably for clients is adjusting to price.
Yeah.
Less so, I think, in obviously in the short term space, because I don't think we haven't really seen the pricing adjustment that we've seen on term debt, and certainly some of um, the term providers have I'm not saying panicked, but I think there were quite a few knee-jerk reactions to Kwasi Kwarteng's budget in that space, and some of the pricing that came out in the corresponding weeks was pretty much over the top. That's certainly settled down. We can see it leveling off. Swap rates seem to be in a reasonably good place. I think the sensible funders out there are adjusting their margins accordingly. So I think there's plenty there. I think exit from short term via refinance is probably the one area where you need to do a lot more work as a broker. But certainly in the short term space, I think, yes, we've seen some people altering their LTVs. We've seen a change in shift to appetite towards commercial properties from some. So, but there's always an alternative, and I think it is a crowded market, and finding your niche in that space is the challenge for us with our capital brand. It's very much, as I said, focused on the quality of the individual and the asset, and actually we'll push LTVs if we really like the client. So that's been successful so far. We've lent money and we've got it back, which is, as you know, is very important. So going
That's the
through the
key to
cycle,
it.
yeah. But
It's-
distribution, I think, as you're starting out, getting that distribution, getting your name out, and getting the flow of deals is probably the biggest issue. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's very easy to lend money. It's quite another thing to get it back, and
Yes.
that's that's what I think, where you see quite a few lenders come in for a couple of years and then you don't hear about them anymore. Are you finding it then, in terms of from the broker side of things, is it any harder to sort of, if someone comes to you with a regular kind of normal deal, is it any harder to do, or is it just making sure the affordability fits and it's kind of there or
Yeah.
thereabouts the same?
It's very much about affordability. I mean, it's all about affordability, certainly on term. And that's, I guess, that readjustment, not just for the client, but also for some of the younger members of the team here who have never seen interest rates. They've never seen base rate effectively be above 0.5. So that's been an adjustment for them. Fortunately, we got a lot of grey hair in the team as well, so we can kind of we can relay them with tales of recessions and downward curves and 15% base rates. So we've got a good balance here. But yeah, that's become more challenging. I think there's innovation in the business. We're in the sector as well. So you've seen adjustments and to interest rates to allow deals to be serviceable by flexing the arrangement fee, which I think is a sensible approach long term. And as I said, it definitely seems to be settling down. So I think we're in a pretty good place at the moment. Plenty of funding out there, lots of appetite, and we're just probably not using the same names perhaps that we were 2-3 years ago. And particularly in that commercial investment space, I think the high street is probably seeing a lot less business from brokers than it would have maybe 3 to 5 years ago. But I think the challenger banks are out there doing a good job in the main,
Yeah,
and I think there's some niche funders out there with some fantastic offerings as well. So yeah.
I saw, interesting enough, on LinkedIn today, someone was offering a 5-year fix for 3.99, which I thought was very reasonable, considering what has been out there. I don't know what
Yeah.
the arrangement fees were, but I would
Come
imagine.
with a pretty hefty fee, I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I would
I think
imagine.
if it's the one I'm thinking of, I think it's kind of, it might even be 7%. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
they make
yeah.
up the
But
margin
it
somewhere.
makes it work for the makes it
Yeah,
work for the funder. What they're effectively doing there as well, because that'll probably be fee added to the facility, 75% loan to value. So effectively they're pushing that up to 82. Which
yeah,
is pretty generous. So yeah, I think what I like about it is the innovation that's out there, and the desire to do business. I think that's a real positive over the last few months. So I think this is not 2008. This is not a case of there's no liquidity in the market and there's no appetite out there. There's plenty of appetite out there, and clearly a lot of bright people in the funders out coming up with innovative ideas to make deals work, which I think is great to see.
Yeah, because talking of kind of cash out there and being able to fund things, obviously with your own lending, you guys decided to set up mainly in Wales and the Southwest. What is the sort of like geographically, do you still find a major difference in terms of access to cash? Like, do you find funding something in, I don't know, say Bristol, which is pretty close, as easy or harder than, or is Cardiff harder to fund, or maybe Swansea or somewhere a bit more rural in Wales? Is there still that difference and difficulty in both sort of term and short-term finance?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always interesting. You've got, I guess, a lot of funders based London, Manchester. So that kind of geographic look down at Wales tends to be focused on Cardiff, Newport, to an extent Swansea, but yeah, I think so, some of the rural and some of the valleys areas are frowned upon for some reason. There's great returns out there. The prices are still reasonable in a lot of areas, although the local residents might not think they are. And it's kind of all relative, but there's still, we got great quality clients down here with quality properties. They might not be in the right postcode for some funders, so there's an element of that. And I think you and I have had conversations actually around some deals, and you kind of gone, well, we don't really like the postcode, and it's a bit far off the beaten track. And if you're going too far into West Wales or maybe into Mid Wales, there's less appetite out there. But
Yeah,
but
the loan to
I
value
yeah,
takes a little bit of a
I'd
hit.
probably counter that with there's enough firms out there. I think for secured debt, I think there's enough out there. You just need to understand who those funders are. But I don't think it's a massive issue. It's not a Northern Ireland, for example. Where we get quite a lot of inquiries in for people seeking finance in Northern Ireland, and that's a real challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Do you,
Wales is not that, and Cardiff's extremely buoyant. And I would, there's no difference between Cardiff and Bristol
yeah.
whatsoever in terms of what's available. You've got 3-4 universities in Cardiff, so it's and a really buoyant housing market there. So Cardiff is particularly buoyant. I think Swansea's seen quite a lot of regeneration, and there's some great schemes on the go down in Swansea as well. So that's not so much of a challenge. It's kind of an M4 corridor is okay until you sort of get to Swansea, maybe pushing in, and you've just got less choice, I guess. I don't think it's difficult to get finance, but you certainly got less choice.
Yeah, it's interesting, and obviously, I think we did a deal for you guys in Cardiff, if
You did?
memory serves. So,
You did?
yeah, a little while ago.
Yeah.
And do you think the sort of rural bits and that kind of thing, and especially in Northern Ireland, is it just a case of people not understanding the areas that well?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not something you hear about and know about. So trying to push that on, because the legal's exactly the same. Whereas obviously Scotland's slightly different, so I can see that putting people off. But even that, are you guys going to be expanding into Scotland at all with your
No.
learning?
No.
No, yeah.
No.
So
No.
yeah,
And that's just because of Scottish law. So
yeah,
yeah, we're that's not our area of expertise. That's not our patch. So yeah, it's not somewhere we particularly understand. And at this point in time, I can't really see us moving into Scotland. So yeah, um, that's going to upset some of my Scottish friends, but that's kind of where it is.
yeah.
Um,
You can't do everything,
yeah,
which you
I think
seem to be.
Northern Ireland's got some interesting nuances to it in terms of the market as well. And yeah, the was law is the same. I think there's some factors in Northern Ireland that probably come into play, and is why you see less funders. But no, for us it'll be England and Wales wide.
Yeah,
Given the size of the deals that we're doing in that space with capital, you can pretty much exclude London and southeast probably from that, because if we're only lending up to 500,000, there's not a lot of properties out there. So I think we know where we intend to do business and where we'd like to do business. So yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and obviously with Northern Ireland specifically, basically there's Belfast, and then outside of that, it's so sort of spread out. It is quite difficult, and obviously we've
Yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
got family out there, so it's
Yeah,
it's a tough
it's a
one.
challenge. We have a direct feed in from an aggregator, which gets a lot of queries from Northern Ireland into our commercial finance business, and we see a lot of bridging requests, but they're predominantly regulated, and regulated bridging out there is almost impossible to place. Yeah, I think if there's a funder out there that has appetite for that, then there's certainly a market from what we see. So
Well, it's good to know, somewhere to look at maybe in the future for the both of us.
yeah,
But yeah, it is a difficult one, and I think it's kind of taking that first punt is always going to be the challenge, because it's, you don't want to lose your money, and if you do you do
yeah,
something wrong, pick the wrong deal, pick the wrong valuer. In terms of, obviously, when you actually were sort of looking to set up the lending side of things, and let me know if you don't want to sort of go too deep into any of these. I know you mentioned obviously Method, and using those to sort of
yeah.
partnering with them. How did you go about kind of picking who to use for something like that? Because obviously you're putting quite a lot of trust in their panel, and we use Method. I'll be open. We like Method so as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
So it's just
I think
how did that come about?
the personal touch really with Stephen was really important. The team's excellent. So we talked to some of the others. I think we're too small, probably to get their notice initially. So that was interesting. Whereas Stephen and the team at Method were, really open to discussions. We talked them through our growth plan, exactly what we wanted to do. We onboarded as brokers anyway. We like the system. We think they're really, really slick. My personal view is I think the pricing was to clients is more attractive as
Yeah,
well. And I really like their digital system and dashboard that they provide to us, and the ongoing service and the training to the team here was absolutely first class. So it was a bit of a no-brainer, to be honest with you.
yeah. It's
And
disappointing to
yeah,
hear the others obviously weren't overly open, because the thing is, in this industry and with everything, it's all about kind of, it's a very small industry in the scheme of things. There's lots of people in there, but everyone knows everybody, and you never know where you're going to end up, because you guys could step, depending on where you go, you could go from only doing sort of small little deals to massive deals and doing hundreds and thousands of them, depending on how things go. So a little short-sighted from whoever that may be. They can um, remain nameless. But yeah, it seems like a strange thing to do,
yeah,
to pass up on that. But we've had it as well with ours. We're too small a bridger
mm,
to be on certain
yeah,
valuers panels. So, it's their business, I guess. No, no complaints. I
yeah.
don't know if you've noticed, obviously we don't have a huge amount of time, and I don't want to keep you forever. But is there any kind of deals that you've done whilst at Cornerstone that really stick out that you could sort of share with us? Just an interesting sort of, or complicated, or really out there kind of deal, just to give people a flavor of the sort of stuff you have done and are doing.
It kind of depends which area you're looking at. If you're talking, probably one of my favorite deals last year would have been supporting existing client purchasing hotel up on the Isle of Mull in Tobermory.
Mm,
So particularly challenging post, kind of, well, sort of kicked off pre-COVID. We moved into COVID area. We've got a hotel that's, well established, but in the need of a bit of work and a bit of renovation. Fantastic client. Had another hotel at the leased out to Travelodge. So we've got a combination of a hotel in a location where a lot of funders just won't go. So it's not mainland Scotland. So you've almost gone where we rule out those that don't do Scotland, and then we rule out those that only do mainland Scotland on the one hotel. The other hotel was leased to Travelodge, who were in a voluntary arrangement at the time.
Oh dear.
So that got kind of ruled out another host, and yeah, we effectively had to split the deal. We got great support from Shawbrook on the investment hotel. So they understood the Travelodge position, where a lot of funders just said no. Spoke to their credit guys who just said Travelodge is in an IVA, well, without realizing they were just coming out of it. And the terms and the renegotiating the lease, etc. So that they were excellent on that. But then they didn't do the Scottish Isles, so they couldn't take the trade in, and they weren't really in the business of trading, supporting trading businesses at the time either. So we then went Cambridge and Counties. We've got a fantastic BDM that we work with locally. With them on together, we pulled together a deal with Cambridge and Counties to support the hotel up in the Isle of Mull. So yeah, that's one of my favourites. Certainly, we've done a number of MBOs and acquisitions. So we've used a variety of facilities for those. Some really good invoice finance support from the likes of Time Finance and Ultimate, and we kind of combined that with some RLS, with some asset finance. So those are the really interesting ones, I think. And then we've
Yeah,
done, I
that's a
guess we've
tough one.
done, on the short term side, we've done, I guess, what most people out there will do, but we've done, we managed to, where we've got particularly good clients, who've got some nice unencumbered assets. We've done a few of the hunting fund type deals as well. So where they're kind of, we're creating a pot for them to go out and grow their portfolio, and we've managed to do that within Cornerstone Capital for one client at the moment. So we've enabled her to go and purchase property kind of on a cash basis and complete some deals within a week, because we're sort of sitting there on an evergreen facility with it. So we don't advertise an evergreen facility, and it's not available to everyone. But where we really like the client, we like the asset, and we probably know the geography really, really well. We've done that type of deal as well.
Okay. Well, that's
And we helped out a local business person whose business had been in some serious difficulty over the last few years, was sitting on some substantial assets. Again, we did a short-term deal just before Christmas for him through Capital, which we did start to finish in 10 days. So that was that was pretty hairy, but because we completed on 23rd of December. So yeah.
Oh, wow. Yep. And that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Next time we get you on, which we'll have to at some point, is talking about the actual speed of business at the moment. But we we could do that next time.
Well, that'll take a long time, because that's slow is the answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For everybody listening, where can they find you? Obviously, if they want to use any of your services, or just generally get in touch and find out more, what's the best way to get in touch?
Visit the Cornerstone Finance Group website, so www.cornerstonefinancegroup.co.uk, and each of the individual component parts of the businesses all have their own pages, etc., on there. Other than that, just kind of Google us, look us up, and get in touch. And if anyone wants to ring me direct, they can always give me a call on the mobile 07960898829.
Perfect. And I will have all the details in the description for everyone. So if they want to get in touch with Haydn and Cornerstone. And then, yeah, thanks so much for your time, Haydn. Really appreciate it. Could go through a hell of a lot more things, but we'll leave it there for now, and obviously we'll get you back on at some point. And thanks again for your time.
No, good to speak to you, David. Take care.
Awesome.